The world of electronic music is a very large one. There are so many different types of electronic music and so many artists making music in the genre. But as with other types of media, not everything that is created ends up getting released to the public. Here are 7 lost or unreleased pieces of electronic music. Sequence Emotion by Le Nightclub. If you're a fan of French house, then you're more than likely familiar with Le Nightclub. The duo, consisting of Guy-Manuel de Homem-Christo of Daft Punk fame and Eric Chedeville, put out many classic releases on the Crytamore label, which they founded and managed. However, one of the earliest releases on the label was almost quite different from the final version. On October 8th, 2015, Eric Chedeville released a video on his YouTube channel, Rico the Wizard. In it, he describes and showcases the track, as well as sharing the story behind it. Now, the video itself is entirely in French, so I wasn't able to understand most of what he was saying, though from what I could gather, the track was originally intended to be included on Crytamore's second release, which was Paul Johnson's track, White Winds, as well as his remix of Le Nightclub's Santa Claus. This means that Sequence Emotion was created during or before the year 1997. In the video, Rico showcases an early pressing of the record. At some point before the final version, Sequence Emotion was replaced with White Winds. Chedeville shows this by playing a small snippet of Paul Johnson's Santa Claus remix.
Le remix de Paul Johnson de Santa Claus. Mais de l'autre côté.
After that, Chedeville then flips the record over to play a section of Sequence Emotion for about a minute and a half. Here's a sample of what he played. If I had to guess why this track was replaced, it would be because maybe the duo felt it didn't fit the sound of Crytamore. But like I said before, this was going to be included on their second release on the label, so I really don't know. Hopefully the full track gets released at some point. The Lost Skrillex Songs. 2010 marked the year Skrillex blew up, with the release of his Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites EP. After this, he quickly became one of the most popular, and also hated, artists in his field for his unique and bombastic production style. But did you know that several of his tracks were stolen? On April 27th, 2011, Skrillex posted the following to his Facebook account. Just gonna set it straight. I had 2 laptops and both of my hard drives stolen out of my hotel in Italy last month. On those laptops and drives were all the project files of Skrillex. All gone now. Also, I had a new album that is gone too. I spent a week pulling my hair out, but now I'm focusing on the future and remaking my album. Yeah, someone stole his hard drives and 2 of his laptops, losing an entire album's worth of work and more in the process. Now, from what I know, we aren't exactly sure what tracks of his were stolen, as none of them were resurfaced after the incident. It's also very well possible that some of his work that would be released after this point were remakes of the stuff that was stolen from him. He also briefly mentioned the incident in an interview.
Today, I want to do an official press release about this, but I won't be able to. I'm just going to say something right now. I had a whole record finished in the studio, and my laptop and all my external hard drives got stolen. Everything's gone, so I'm basically starting over my record from scratch starting now. So I have a really cool record.
Assuming he's telling the truth, I feel really bad for him. Imagine putting lots of time and effort into something, only to have it ripped away from you before you can share it with anybody. It's kind of heartbreaking, honestly, and this is not even the first time that something like this has happened. Now on that lovely note, let's move on to the next entry. Miracle Mile and Masquerade is Over by Mr. Flash. If you've been watching my videos for a while, then you'll know I'm a big fan of Mr. Flash. What you may not know, however, is that there are 2 tracks of his we know of that have never been fully released. In early 2013, Mr. Flash put together a promo compilation mix for Sugi magazine in celebration of Ed Banger Records' 10th anniversary. The mix itself consists of excerpts of 19 songs Mr. Flash has produced over the years. What's interesting though is that 10 of the 19 tracks were brand new to this compilation. However, as mentioned before, these were only excerpts, not the full-length versions. Around a year and a half later, 4 of these tracks would be released in full on Mr. Flash's debut album, Sonic Crusader. A little after that, the song Moonchild was fully released on the Midnight Blue EP. Finally, the remaining 5 tracks were released in full on Mr. Flash's SoundCloud account. That is, except for Miracle Mile and Masquerade Is Over. Why these 2 tracks in particular haven't been fully released is unknown. It's possible that they may be unfinished, or Mr. Flash forgot about them, or just didn't feel like releasing them. Who knows? Unfortunately, Mr. Flash left Ed Banger Records in late 2015. His online presence is also pretty minimal, and I tried DMing him on social media to ask about the tracks, but I didn't receive any response. Hopefully someday we'll get to hear the full versions of both tracks. Acid Memories by Boards of Canada. Here's an interesting one. Acid Memories isn't a single track, but rather an album created by the popular IDM duo Boards of Canada. It was completed back in 1989 when both members were in their late teenage years. The album itself was never officially released. Only select few copies of it were given to family and close friends of the group. Acid Memories consists of 6 different tracks. The total length of the album is 32 minutes and 44 seconds. The only part of the album that's been made available to the public is a 26-second snippet of the opening track, Duffy. This snippet first surfaced in the late 90s and can still be found today. Let's have a listen. In an article written by Richard Southron, he describes the sound of Acid Memories as guitars meet electronics and embryotic but recognizably Boardsian melodicism. The duo have also mentioned the album a few times in interviews, but I doubt they're ever going to release the full album to the public. Perhaps they could change their minds, but who knows. Also, Acid Memories isn't BOC's only unreleased work that we know of. There's also Play by Numbers, Hooper Bay, Catalog 3, and a couple others. Proxime by Sebastian. French producer Sebastian actually has quite a number of unreleased tracks, the majority of which were played at live events. The track I'm going to be focusing on is called Proxime. This song was played live at Sebastian's primary tour back in 2011, around the time his first album Total was released. The track itself consists of a harpsichord, synth bass, and a booming drum machine pattern. There's also a harpsichord solo at one point. Only a 2-minute excerpt of the track is currently available to the public, and there's a portion where the audio quality drops significantly. Why this track wasn't released, I'm not sure, but I do have a guess. Recently, it's been confirmed that Sebastian's first album was originally going to have 45 tracks. This was later reduced to 22 tracks instead. So I think Proxime was left out in place of another track he made called Tetra. If you compare the two, you'll notice they do have a lot of similarities. Hopefully Proxime will be fully released sometime in some shape or form. Sebastian has released a few tracks only heard during live events before. For example, his track Black Semity was further fleshed out, given lyrics from Asian vocalist Luta, and released as Sito Suite on his second album, Thirst. Xanax by Mr. Wazo. Electronic music producer Mr. Wazo has put out quite a bit of music ever since he began his career in the late 90s. The track of his I'll be discussing, Xanax, was first revealed to the public in a DJ mix from fellow producer Feeds back in mid-2016. After this, an excerpt of the track was posted on YouTube. Supposedly, the track was going to be released as part of Mr. Wazo's album All Wet, but for whatever reason, the track was cut from the album. The song itself sounds pretty typical from him with a lot of synthesizers and chopped up samples. The full version of the track has yet to be released, so only the mixed excerpt is available to the public. Now before I end this video, I want to go over one more piece of music as a bonus. It's not lost or unreleased, but it's so incredibly rare it might as well be. Music for Supermarkets by Jean-Michel Jarre. In the year 1983, Jarre was asked to create the soundtrack to an art exhibition. He agreed and composed the music over a 4-month time span. The exhibition itself took place at the Jean-Claude Riedel Gallery over most of the month of June that same year. Afterwards, the artwork would be auctioned off. Jarre was inspired by this and decided that his soundtrack would also be a one-off piece of art and be auctioned off for charity. As such, only one legitimate copy of the album was ever pressed, and the master plates used to press the record were destroyed. Jarre's record label was hesitant of the idea at first, but eventually agreed. Another reason that only one copy was printed is because Jarre wanted to make a statement against music being distributed in places like supermarkets.
It's also at the same time that I decide to do a very special project called Music for Supermarkets as a kind of statement against this massive distribution of CDs on supermarkets. I thought at the very early stage that it could be very dangerous for the music industry and to sell music like yogurts.
The album was sold in July 1983. Shortly after this, the album was played once in full on AM radio, and fans were able to record bootlegs of it. Because of this, the album can still be heard today in its entirety online. Unfortunately, because it was played and recorded from AM radio, the audio quality ended up becoming pretty bad, and this is the only way the album can be heard by the public. Luckily though, 4 of the 8 tracks would later be released on future albums. For instance, Part 4 was released as Blah Blah Cafe on his next album Zuluk, Part 6 was tweaked, given additional vocals, and used as the second half of the track Diva, also on Zuluk. Part 2 was used as the second half of the track Fifth Rendezvous from his album Rendezvous, and Part 1 was released on the 2018 compilation Planet Jar. The album itself consists of experimental ambient pieces and more upbeat dance pieces. As the album title suggests, sounds of supermarket ambience were also incorporated into the album, mainly as transitions between tracks. Now, in my opinion, unless the current owner of the record rips it and posts the music online, I don't think the full album will ever be re-released. Still though, I hope at least the opening track, Music for Supermarkets Overture, gets a proper release. That track in particular was a big highlight from the album in my opinion. And that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new from it. I haven't come across many videos talking about unreleased music, so I thought this would be interesting. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.